Lobbies and Gentlegrams, the two-tone Gemini with the genocide. I'm generous however you want it. I'll be that gentle kind. Lobbies and gentlemen and gangsters connect. The agenda of mine, move people out of here. The stuff get gentrified. Heavy jeans like Genovese. I drop your pentagon, then show up at your gender reveal and tell them give me mine. Now my agenda was not to generate my own rhymes this time because the genre just got gems. A generational album from the giants Gene and Terrence Thornton, the Clipse, reaching back in rap to pick up the scraps of everything they missed. So sit back and unpack this classic album, every bit of it. Now, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, we just got a behemoth of an album tonight. After 15 years of Pusha T's solo career and his brother pursuing his faith, his spiritual transformation, publishing a memoir, solo Christian music, changing his name from Malice to No Malice, and then maybe back to Malice. Anyways, Pharrell gave the Clipse the name The Clipse. Originally, they were known as Full Eclipse because they were trying to eclipse over the industry. Two Virginia brothers spreading their message across hip-hop, forever changing it in the process, and they had their fair share of turmoils. In 2005, they sued their record label at the time, Jive, for holding up their 2006 album Hell Hath No Fury, and in 2025, they paid Def Jam over $1 million to get out of their record contract and finally find a new home for their first album in 15 years. It's safe to say they've been through it all, and stay tuned tomorrow because I'm going to be dropping a full documentary front to back on the full story of the Clipse. But we got to touch on this album today, Lobbies and Gentlegrams, because just off the first two spins, there's already so much to break down. Both, I believe, in their 50s, still picking right back up where they left off in 2009. They had a lot to get off their chest. Pharrell lacing them with some of the most insane production we've heard in a long time, and some of hip-hop's highest heavyweights featuring on the project to join the Clipse for the ride. I'm talking Kendrick, Tyler, Nas, feature verses that were somehow so controversial they almost got the album shelved. But here it is, 15 years later, we finally get the reunion of the Clipse. And I think if you've been a Clipse fan this entire time, this is everything you could have wanted. So we start off with track 1, Birds Don't Sing, and what a way for the two brothers to make a statement after 15 years of pursuing their own solo ventures. Of course, life hits you, and with the two brothers having been lucky enough to be raised in a two-parent household, but tragically losing both their parents in, I believe, 2021 and 2022, the message we get on the first song alone is one of resilience through pain, finding the beauty in the darkness of life's most gruesome moment, death. And I think this is what the Clipse have encapsulated throughout their entire career, throughout all of their subject matter. It's always been about finding the beauty and the lessons in the darkest of situations. While it's typically Malice playing the more cautious role, reflecting on the repercussions that come with a life of drug dealing, here we get both Pusha T and Malice opening up in possibly the most vulnerable state we've ever seen them in. And this is, again, the first track off the album. This is how it kicks off. Pusha T's verse is him penning a letter to his mother, and then Malice's verse is him writing to their father. Pusha T starts it off, lost in emotion, my mom was youngest, trying to navigate life without my compass. Some experience death and feel numbness, but not me. I felt it all and couldn't function. Emphasizing here that his mother was his moral compass throughout his life, and he now has to navigate through that without her. And like Kendrick said on United in Grief, I grieve different, right? Pusha T here is saying, you know, some people experience loss and they grieve through numbness. They just kind of shut off emotionally. But for Pusha, he kind of shut off in the opposite direction. He couldn't function through life while processing this loss. Extremely heavy bars to open up this album with. And then he details his final moments with his mother where, again, remember, he starts off the verse saying that she was his compass. And in their final conversation, Pusha, not realizing that this would be the last interaction he has with her on Earth, he's kind of telling her his plans for the near future. He's kind of lost in the hustle of his career. He's not really sitting marinating in this moment, not truly realizing that this would be the last one that he shares with his mother. Seeing you that day, telling you my plans, but I was leaving you that day. On my way to Texas, that's when Virginia hit me, and I realized in that instant, our last conversation, you was against it. Now, what's also really crazy here is Pusha T details how this conversation he had with his mother, he was right on the verge of going to visit Kanye West, who was waiting for him at Elon Musk's house to record at the time Donda 2. Pusha T, before heading out, he has this conversation with his mother, and then he loses her tragically in November of 2021. Kanye West also lost his mother in November of 2007, and later in this verse, Pusha T raps, "Two things that break my heart is what Novembers do." It shows that while Kanye West has definitely mistreated Pusha T throughout the years, taken advantage of Pusha's loyalty to good music, Pusha T's still very open and honest in the fact that they both share this very real vulnerability. Now again, Pusha details here that his mother was against his future plans on their last conversation, and Pusha says, "I heard what I wanted to hear, but I didn't listen." Again, Pusha T probably not realizing that this would be the final conversation with his mother. He's not truly listening. He's not truly soaking in the gravity of the situation. And he's saying that it was almost like she was preparing for this to be one of her final moments on earth. As he puts it, kind of checking off boxes, right? Getting some closure on certain situations. He's rapping to his mother saying, "You said you told Jean that Bup needed forgiveness. I see you went to Didi's and stuffed both her fridges. You even told Dad you wish y'all never split it. See, you were checking boxes. I was checking my mentions." Again, emphasizing that in the moment to Pusha, this was almost like a regular conversation, when in reality, possibly his mother knew her time was coming and she was checking boxes while Pusha T was distracted, checking his mentions, focusing on future plans, not really focused on the present moment. Now, Pusha and Malice's mother passed away first, but just a few months later, in March of 2022, they tragically lost their father. And again, Malice pens his verse to the final interaction that he had with their dad, starting it off as he was visiting his father's house, saying, "Your car was in the driveway. I knew you were home. By the third knock, a chill ran through my bones. The way you missed mama, I guess I should have known. Chivalry ain't dead. You ain't let her go alone." Because, of course, again, their mother passed first. And Malice is saying here that the way that his father showed grief towards losing his wife, it's almost like chivalry, right? Being a gentleman. You didn't let her go alone. You didn't let her transcend into heaven by herself. You went with her. Very powerful words. And then he details how, again, at this time, it's 2022, Malice is contemplating entering back into the rap game, right? He had done features on the Kanye song, Use This Gospel, and on Pusha T's album, It's Almost Dry, but he didn't make his full entrance back into the rap game, and he's here contemplating whether or not he should with his father on their final visit, rapping, "I can hear your voice now, I can feel your presence," asking, "Should I rap again? You gave me your blessing. The way you spelt it out, there's an L in every lesson. Boy, you owe it to the world. Let your mess become your message." And again, this is what Malice's music has always encapsulated, right? Letting the mess become the message, detailing the coattails of the past with a more cautionary approach. And then he reflects on the fact that, again, he was blessed and lucky enough to actually have an active father within his life, something that some of his friends didn't have. And he says, "I shared you with my friends, the pops that they never had. You lived for our fishing trips. Damn, I had a dad. Mine taught me discipline, taught me structure. Mine didn't mind when he had to pull a double. Mine worked overtime, smiled through the struggle, because mine wouldn't let us feel what we had to suffer." Emphasizing his father was always there, always working hard and making sure that him and Pusha never actually had to struggle, or at least feel the struggle. He always supported them with what they needed. And Malice has echoed this in the past, emphasizing that his introduction into dealing drugs and his life in that area didn't stem from poverty or a need to hustle, right? His father provided them with everything they needed to be comfortable. It was more that when they moved to Virginia, their cousins had been, according to Malice, messing around in that game at the time, and that's what kind of introduced Malice into that life, and then later Pusha T, who was the younger brother, who kind of followed in Malice's footsteps. Again, I got the whole documentary coming tomorrow on their full story, but it was really Malice that laid the foundation for the Clipse, that taught Pusha T everything he knew, that was working with Timbaland, I believe in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, rapping over his beats and then transferring over to Chad and Pharrell's production. Malice was the rapper first. Pusha T came in the booth one day. He would just follow his brother around and eventually just spit a verse. Then they realized, oh wait, we could kind of split the work in half here by just forming a group, and both of us conveying our message on the same song. And that's when, of course, Pharrell gave them the name, the Clipse. The rest is history, but it was all through the foundation that Malice laid, and that was all thanks to the childhood and upbringing that his father was able to instill in him. And then right before he's about to leave this earth, he's telling Malice, continue rapping, let your mess become your message. Your last few words in my ear still ring. You told me you love me, it was all in your tone. I love my two sons was the code to your phone. Now you're gone. And this was an extremely, extremely heavy verse. Honestly, off first listen, I was just excited to get into this album. And this kind of left me honestly, just in a state of gratitude. You gotta love and appreciate your family while they're here and live in the moment. And I had to spin this song back several times before I even got to the next one. And that's where it gets even crazier, is the change in energy and tempo in messaging from this song, the intro song, then to the next one. Absolutely insane. And one thing I love about the Clipse is, I mean, they give us amazing rollouts every single time. Like, as I was doing research on this documentary about their story, you have so many interviews to work with. Like, they're an open book. They really give fans a glimpse into everything they're feeling, everything they're thinking, and they've done this throughout their entire career. There's interviews from like 2002, and really nothing has changed in their messaging. And Malice gives us some added perspective to this verse in an interview that they just did with Ebro, where he emphasizes that, you know, his father, again, he was lucky enough to have him around, and his father would always say, "I love you." That was something he always said. He never shied away from, you know, giving his sons affection. And when Malice is asked, like, do you feel like you got the closure you needed when you lost your father? He says, yes, absolutely. Because on that last visit, he told me he loves me, but he always says he loves me. This time, it just hit different, knowing it would be the last time I'd see him. Now we get into the next song, Chains and Whips, which again has an absolutely complete 180 type of energy from the intro. The intro leaving you full of emotion, literally feeling the Clipse's heartbreak. The second song, Chains and Whips, just makes you feel raw energy. And I think Kendrick encapsulates it perfectly on one bar of the song where he says, "Therapy taught me how to open up. It also showed me I don't give a F." Because, again, on the intro track, they're penning these heartfelt messages to their parents. But then on the second track, it's the duality of opening up. It's showing you that you can also just be confident in what you stand for, in your message. So Pusha T opens it up with the chorus, hard-hitting, rapping, "Uncle said, you must be sick. All you talk about is just getting rich. Choke my neck, ice my B, beat the system with chains and whips." And when he says Uncle said, you must be sick, it almost sounds like he's saying Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam is, of course, America personified, right? We saw an Uncle Sam figure on the Super Bowl stage with Kendrick Lamar as well. And here it's almost like Push is saying, you know, America kind of looks down on rap as having these materialistic values, right? All you talk about is just getting rich. But Push emphasizes he's beating the system. And throughout the album, you keep getting this tag with what sounds like a woman saying, "This is culturally inappropriate." And Pusha T said that what this basically represented, it was pretty simple, really. They were just listening to insane beats in the studio with Pharrell at the Louis Vuitton studios, and someone yelled, "This is culturally inappropriate." Like, this is just insane to bring forth to the culture, these type of beats, this type of raw production. I think it really kind of carries on an even deeper meaning when you think about everything that the Clipse stands for, right? They've always been about going against the grain and being outspoken towards people or issues within the culture that they disagree with. Now, on a previous video, I broke down this song almost in full, so we're not going to get crazy deep into it, but Pusha T is essentially sending shots at Jim Jones on his verse. I think it's kind of also aimed at Kanye West, though. But the first few bars definitely aimed at Jim Jones and his current financial situation, saying, "You run from the spirit of repossession. Too much enamel covers your necklace." Enamel is essentially a protective coating of higher quality metal on top of lower quality metal. So, for example, like jewelry can be made of really cheap metal, but then you put higher quality metal on top of that to kind of make it look like it's expensive. Pusha T here is basically saying you're doing a bunch of fake flexing, right? It's all for show, and you're running from the spirit of repossession, because in 2019, Jim Jones had actually lost his mansion in New Jersey due to foreclosure after defaulting on mortgage payments. His house got repossessed. He's running from the spirit of repossession. Pusha T continues, "I buy B's, you buy them sections. You buy watches, I buy collections." Whole lot of flexing. And I don't think he's talking Kanye here, because of course we know Kanye, definitely if he has one thing, he's got money, right? But here's where I think he's kind of taking aim at Kanye, rapping, "Misery's fueling your regression. Jealousy's turned into obsession. Reality TV is mud wrestling. Some signed checks I know better than." In terms of misery fueling your regression, we know Kanye has regressed majorly over the last few years, and it all stems in jealousy, right? It all stems in misery. Kanye has lost a lot throughout his life. He's lost his children, his ex-wife, his mother. On the forefront, sadly, in 2025, it almost seems like a legend who's lost in their misery, who's regressing because they've lost so much and they're just fighting to keep whatever they could. And he's also extremely jealous, right? He's been jealous of Pusha himself. He's been jealous of Drake. He was jealous of all the artists who featured on Playboi Carti's and Travis Scott's latest albums because he wasn't able to get on them because of the controversial takes he's been having over the last few years. So Pusha T says here, jealousy's turned into obsession. Look at how obsessed Kanye has been with the fact that he wasn't on Playboi Carti's album, or the fact that he hasn't been able to collaborate with Drake. One day he hates Drake, one day he loves him. The jealousy has turned into obsession. And when he mentions reality TV, we know that his former in-laws, the Kardashians, are famous, of course, for being on reality TV. Then he says, some signed checks I know better than. Kanye has signed a lot of checks in his career that he regrets. And beyond just checks, he signed marital contracts that he regrets, right? Marrying Kim Kardashian, Kanye has been on record stating that he denounces that whole family, right? And all of this has generated Kanye into being this miserable shell of his former self, which has fueled all his regression, all his deterioration. Malice on his verse kind of echoing the same sentiments of running from the spirit of repossession, being sucked into this life of vanity, ego, but it all being a facade, and that misery of trying to keep up that image, keeping you regressing. You're not beating the system here, you're fighting the devil. And he raps, Richard, aka Richard Milley, don't make watches for presidents. Just a million trapped between skeletons. The Richard Milley watch is inside a skeletonized case. But he's using that as a double entendre here to say that all those skeletons in your closet are being masked through the facade of materialism. And now, of course, I already have a full video breaking down Kendrick's verse on this song, and it's legendary for so many reasons. I mean, aside from this being an insane song, and I think the first link up that Kendrick and Pusha T have had in years, the first one being Nostalgia, where Kendrick repeatedly incorporates different schemes that contain the word 10 in them. On this verse, he continues the theme with tons of alliterations with words that contain gen in them. Like I rapped on the beginning of this video, the two-time Gemini with the genocide, I'm generous, however you want it, I'll be the gentle kind, gentlemen and gangsters connect, the agenda of mine, my son guys, I'm the general, where's my gin and juice? Every song is the book of Genesis, let the sonics boom. People want the tea on me, well here's the ginger root. I generate residuals, get off my genitals. They said I couldn't reach Gen Z, you F and D heads. You must be full of that ginseng, here's the jinx. He takes a little jab at Kanye, just like Pusha T does, rapping, their genetics been synthetic, they scream ingenious. A finger wave, they all fall. These guys are Jenga. The way he pronounces the word genius is the same way that it's spelt for the Kanye documentary Genius, which Kanye I don't believe approved of because it really documents his fall from grace, right? The first few episodes document Kanye's genius, going into different record labels, shopping his album that no one wanted to pick up, no one saw the vision fully, and him really building in the early stages the massive momentum that would soon shortly become one of his magnum opuses, The College Dropout, his debut album. And then it takes you through his journey all the way up to The Life of Pablo, where he's premiering the album at the Yeezy Season 3 fashion show at the peak of his global dominance and influence, giving the world a whole line of clothes that would then inspire fashion for the next few years, as well as an album, The Life of Pablo, that would inspire a whole generation of rappers. And he's doing this around all his peers, all his good music roster, Big Sean, 2 Chainz, Travis, Pusha T himself. And then it kind of documents in the final episode his fall from grace when he's all alone in a ranch in Wyoming, his family gone, everyone gone, him trying to run for president, just kind of being lost, like Pusha T said, regressing in his misery. And Kanye has always been one to call himself a genius. Kendrick screaming here, their genetics been synthetic, screaming their genius. A finger wave, they all fall, they're Jenga. Jenga, of course, is a board game where you place a bunch of blocks on top of each other, and the loser is the one whose block ends up crumbling the entire tower. Kendrick here is saying that the foundation is frail. They're screaming they're a genius, but it's all been synthetic. And I saw a really interesting theory from Jeremy Hecht. He's an amazing content creator. I hope one day to work with him. He's an inspiration. He's also from Canada. He's got 2 amazing shows on Hip Hop DX on Up Rocks. Big inspiration, but he was theorizing that Kendrick's entire verse is rapped through the perspective of Donald Trump. I mean, him starting off the verse rapping, I'm not the candidate to vibe with. I don't F with the kumbaya stuff. I don't mess with the peaceful stuff. And there's a lot of bars in this verse to kind of back up that theory, right? Bars like, F it, the West is mine, we're up now. Of course, this is Kendrick reflecting on his dominance within the West Coast and all that he did in 2024 to put on for the West Coast. But America is also known as the West, right? And who's the president of America right now? When he says the West is mine, who could he be referring to? He also raps the two-tone Gemini with the genocide. Trump, funny enough, is also a Gemini. That's his sign. Kendrick here is saying he's coming with the lyrical genocide. Of course, we know there's a lot of issues going on in the world. Trump attempting to kind of puppeteer all of them. And we know on Watch the Party Die, Kendrick raps, "God give me light, please God give me peace, keep these guys away from me." I believe this verse was recorded around the same time in June or July of 2024, and he ends off the verse saying, "God gave me light, a good year full of free will," aka the decision to choose what you want to do. And earlier in the verse, he says, "Therapy showed me how to open up, but it also showed me I don't give a F, and I'm the two-tone Gemini with the genocide. I'm out here for violence." And he concludes the verse rapping, "Trump card told me not to spare your life." We know around this time when Kendrick recorded the verse, there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. And here he's saying, "Trump card told me not to spare your life," aka he told me not to give you grace and to take it all. What did Kendrick take in that summer? You guys probably know. Because by September, he was talking about watching the party die. Here he's talking about he's not sparing no lives. And again, if you want a full breakdown of this entire verse, I already did that a couple weeks ago when the verse was previewed at a listening party for the album. And this verse has a lot of lore to it, a lot of backstory, right? We obviously know that, again, Pusha T and Malice were attempting to release this album under Def Jam, which is a label under UMG. At the time, they were still trying to repair their relationship with Drake after Not Like Us before he filed their lawsuit. And when they looked at the optics of Kendrick and Pusha T linking up on this verse, they allegedly, according to Pusha T, started ignoring his emails, saying they should only communicate through calls, acting suspicious, and eventually requesting that they censor Kendrick's verse. Pusha T refused, and so they ended up buying themselves out of that Def Jam deal for over $1 million and moving on to Roc Nation to release this album. And I mean, you guys tell me, did this verse deserve to be censored? Was it just the optics of everything? Pusha and Kendrick standing together while Drake was threatening to sue the same label that this song was going to be released on? Regardless, when it's all said and done, this verse became $1 million verse. The Clipse had to pay $1 million to get this song out to the world. Now, another $1 million verse, which probably didn't cost $1 million, was the next feature on the next track off this project. Insane energy for literally, I would say, the entire album. But the first few songs especially really give us some special energy, and we get Tyler, the Creator, on the third song off this album, POV. Now, there's a lot of acronyms on the project in terms of the titles. POV, of course, meaning point of view, and we'll get to the other acronyms when we get to them. But this song has to be a highlight off the project. Malice's verse is absolutely insane. Of course, Tyler's is as well. And on a side note, I kind of wish that they did the Travis Scott approach, where they hide the names of the features on the album until you actually hear the features, because that would make these moments like so much more impactful, in my opinion. I actually like that strategy a lot, and I'm not just saying that because their beef, Travis and Pusha T, started because Travis had previewed Utopia during a recording session of this Clipse album without showing the Drake verse. It was a hidden verse, and then we got it when the album officially released. That's not why I'm saying this. I just like the experience of not knowing who the features are going to be and then just hearing a voice that I recognize, that I love on a track. I think especially this Tyler song and the Kendrick song would have been insane moments if we had no idea and then we just, boom, hear their voices on the verse. I like the way Pusha T starts off this song, though. All I see is 60-day stars and 20-year thousandaires. 60-day stars, of course, refers to the many one-hit wonders within the genre, the TikTok soundbite stars, the ones who are just chasing a quick hit and disappear after 60 days, or the 20-year thousandaires, like Jim Jones, right, who he was taking shots at on the previous song. Someone who's been in the game for 20 plus years, but only adds a couple $1,000s to their name. And hey, that's okay, right? I'm like almost in my 30s, 20 plus years into life, and I'm only a thousandaire. So drop a like on this video. Hopefully that gets me to a millionaire. And hopefully you guys too, right? Like, go listen to this album while you're in the gym, while you're grinding. Like, this album just puts you in a different type of energy. It gets you grinding, no pun intended. And Pusha T's not just calling out the broke rappers, the one-hit wonders here. He's also calling out the streamers, the content creators rapping. You stream kings, but you never fit a crowd in there. Supreme Team parallels when the powder clears. I seen things that I'm still not proud to share. You Zeus Network guys, you hear me loud and clear. A parallel to his bar on Chains and Whips when he raps reality TV is mud wrestling. And then he continues, get these 5,500 hosting guys out of here. Who could he be talking about that was on Zeus Network TV shows, reality TV shows, and doing $5,500 club hosting events? Pusha continues calling out the content creators on the hook, rapping, they content create. I despise that. I create content, then they tries that. telling you that there's a lot of mimicking going on within the industry, people following his footsteps, but kind of watering down the formula, right? Then Tyler jumps in, and you could tell he's never been happier to do a feature, right? Like, this is probably a dream for him, listening to the Clipse, the Neptunes as a kid, and then coming in and actually rapping on a Pharrell beat on a Clipse album 15 years after their last album. Pretty insane. And I don't even think Tyler was a major artist the last time the Clipse actually dropped an album, right? So for him to have a feature here shows how far he's come. And on a side note, this song almost sounds like an elevation or like an interpolation of Pusha T and Tyler's old collaboration, Trouble on My Mind. Like everything from Pusha's cadence, the grittiness of this beat. Tyler jumps in rapping, "Call me Mr. Brella, how I weather the storm," obviously comparing himself to an umbrella. And people already are thinking he's taking shots at Drake. Of course, he's on a Clipse album, so pretty fitting. He raps, "Little feature guys threaten to sue me. Tell your lawyer to set the fee." Of course, we know La Brianna is suing over a diss song, right? He studies rap battles for a living. And as this album was being created, UMG tried to censor the project due to Kendrick's verse and the whole optics of Drake's biggest ops linking up on a track right as he's on the cusp of filing a lawsuit. So when Tyler raps, "Little feature guys threaten to sue me, tell your lawyer to set the fee," of course they thought, he's on a Clipse album, it's only fitting he's sending some bars to La Brianna, but he's actually not. He tweeted out right away when the album dropped saying, "And an old friend I've made music with threatened to sue me over a feature that they gave me, just so y'all don't run with no narratives." But I love when Tyler gets into this call me if you get lost type bag where he's just talking crazy on the track. "La Ferrari doors open like it's therapy. That number ain't bread to me. That millions is crumbs. You guys are bums. I'm not a tough guy. I'm a flower boy. Those bees get you stung. My guy Pusha, keep dirty white moving like mosh pits." Because of course, in mosh pits, there's oftentimes a lot of white boys just jumping around, and they could be, sweaty, dirty, whatever the case is. And of course, the dirty white, Pusha moving the dirty white like a mosh pit. Also, them creating dope today. That white powder, it's not the same as it was years ago, right? Today, it's music. Today, the dope is music. Moving like mosh pits. And he ends his verse off in a crazy way, rapping, "The curse of the zeros. When you become the devil or the tap dancing N-word, I came to terms that I'ma probably outgrow my heroes. Come get with me." When you're chasing those zeros, those dollars, you're tap dancing, you end up losing yourself to the devil, right? Tyler says that's not him. He's come to terms that he'll probably outgrow his heroes, the ones who did potentially get lost in that life. Could also be the third shot on the album aimed at Kanye West, because of course, Kanye in 2025 is telling DJ Akademiks that he's evil. And, when you're saying when you become the devil, I came to terms, I'ma probably outgrow my heroes. We know Kanye West was one of the massive inspirations on Tyler, the Creator's career. But honestly, I think Malice has the best verse on this song and possibly my favorite verse off the project so far. When he raps, "If they had to weigh the operation, call it obese." Obviously a double entendre saying he's moving, immense weight, but also the operation being huge. I mix it like Mahomes, then I tell them go deep. He's mixing the dope and he's comparing it to Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback on the Kansas City Chiefs, who's known for mixing different styles, throwing deep bombs downfield, also being mixed, as in he's mixed race. This is a crazy bar. "Just to think I built a rap career off an OZ. I'm watching new guys rap just to OD." We've seen an immense amount of tragic ODs within the music industry, within hip-hop, and it became a big phase after Malice had long left the game, where a lot of rappers weren't necessarily rapping like Malice about selling the drugs, but instead about using them, right? Malice, again, always bringing in that cautionary, reflective tone to his bars, even when they are about drug dealing. And he emphasizes that in the next few bars, rapping, "If I didn't give you both sides, I wouldn't be me. I was the only one to walk away and really be free. I can open up my closet with a skeleton key." Of course, because you keep the skeletons in your closet when you're fighting your demons. And on the previous song, Chains and Whips, Malice had rapped, "The Richard Millies don't make watches for presidents, just a million trapped between skeletons," aka you're just fighting your demons through material possessions. Malice, on the other end, is very open and vulnerable about his forthcomings, about his demons, and he can open up his closet, the skeletons in his closet, with the skeleton key. He's not holding back on the skeletons, on the flaws. And he's reflecting here on returning back to rap, right? Always giving you both sides of the coin, both perspectives. Again, always being aware of his shortcomings, rapping, "Came back for the money, that's the devil in me. Had to hide it from the church, that's the Jekyll in me." Insane bar, because of course he's saying here, he came back to rap for the money, right? And money is the root of all evil. You're not supposed to come back to try and spread your message just for the purpose of financial gain. But Malice is saying here, that's the flaw in him. That's the devil in him, right? And when he says had to hide it from the church, that's the Jekyll in me. He's saying he had to hide that intention from the church because, of course, he left hip-hop to go on this spiritual quest. But when he says hide and the Jekyll in him, he's referring to the novel The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where the character Dr. Jekyll decides to bring out his second nature, which is done by transforming himself into a much nastier alter ego, Mr. Hyde. He hides his evil doings through this alter ego, and that's what Malice is saying is basically going on here, right? He returned to rap, he returned to this persona of Malice for the money, that's the devil in him, and he had to hide it from the church, that's the Jekyll in him, aka comparing himself to the character of Dr. Jekyll in the book, who hides his evil doings through this alter ego. Overall, absolutely insane verse, crazy song in general, crazy start to this album. We're only 3 tracks in. Then you get to So Be It Part 2, which is essentially the same song we got as the second single to the album, but with a whole new beat. And honestly, in my opinion, this beat is way better. Like, I know people love the first beat, the first rendition, but Pharrell adds this like evil organ type synth into the background of the beat here. You got these like cinematic choir vocals in the background of the beat while Malice is rapping his verse. The dramatic build up in the beat throughout Pusha's third verse, where of course he's taking aim at Travis Scott. I have a whole video breaking that down, but essentially he's inferring to the fact that Travis's girl found her utopia right up the street in Calabasas, and we had uncovered that Tyga was actually living in that area at the time, and right when Travis and Kylie broke up, she was back to partying in the same venues as Tyga. There's a whole rabbit hole there. Again, broke it down in my video, How Pusha T Destroyed Good Music. You guys can check that out. Crazy lore behind this whole album, really. Like, they've really built this up between the rollout, between going back to the conventional route of actually sitting down, doing interviews, breaking down the songs. Apparently, we're getting a whole week of Genius videos where Pusha T and Malice will be breaking down the bars of every one of these tracks as well. The rollout with the vinyls and the different collaborations with fashion brands. Drop a comment if you guys bought some Clipse merch. Plus, I mean, the whole thing being executive produced by Pharrell, like, this feels like we're back in 2006, in 2002, with one of the OG Clipse albums. This feels like a continuation of their first 2 albums, picking up really not where they left off in 2009, but all the way back 2006 with Hell Hath No Fury. Some other highlights off of the first few listens for me include Bada. This is an insane song. Bada stands for Earnings Before Income Tax Depreciation and Amortization. It's an accounting tool basically used to calculate a company's profits before the government comes in and takes those taxes. And of course, you know the type of business that Pusha T is rapping about running, right? And this song to me brings back the most feeling of vintage Clipse. I know that sentence didn't really make sense, but this brings me back the most to vintage Clipse. You have Pharrell here rapping, and Pusha T has said in many interviews, like, Pharrell, beyond being a producer, a singer, like, at heart, he's truly a rapper. He has a way with words, and I love hearing him in his rapping bag a lot more than his singing bag, to be honest. He also shouts out Takeoff in his verse, and I love that because Takeoff is an absolute legend, and I feel like he's not discussed or praised enough, especially by the people around him who collaborated with him. I mean, I know, Quavo, Offset, they do a lot to still show love and remembrance to his legacy, but you never hear like Young Thug, Travis, Future, Gunna, any of these guys really rapping about Takeoff. I feel like his legacy should receive a lot more praise than it does. But anyways, on this song, I mean, Pusha goes crazy between the flow that he has on the hook, then he carries it to the verse. Then you got him and Malice going back and forth on the third verse, and I mean, it's just insane. 15 years later, they still have this insane chemistry rapping back and forth together, picking up like things never changed, right? Like, the level of quality of these bars has not diminished somehow 15 years later. Then you get Fico. This is another one of my highlights off the project. Stove Got Cooks comes in with an insane hook. This is one of my favorite features too off the album. Fico refers to credit scores. So Pusha T basically here is saying you got to have a credit score above 850 to be re-upping with us, to be doing business with us. Bada and Fico, those are 2 of my highlights off the project. Then you get into, speaking of re-up, a little re-up gang reunion with Ab Lava on Inglorious Bastards. This is also another dope song. Funky bass line, there's trumpets in the background. Pharrell absolutely kills the production here. Again, all of them picking up with the chemistry like they never left off. making a sound that sounds timeless, but also doesn't sound like it's keeping up with the youth, like it's trying to be current. It's raw, it's experimental, it's non-conforming from the messaging to the production to the chemistry that all three of them have symbiotically together, but still carrying an extremely powerful message and flowing through different types of energy from song to song. This is a real album experience for people who don't know. Then the next song, So Far Ahead, you get this kind of like slowed down, more gospel version of the beat from Ace Trumpets, the first single off this project, and Malice again delivers another standout verse, one of the best verses off the project, with some really powerful bars like, try to hide the dope in the message like we did the coke in the Lexus, same hands I used to whip work, see me turn them both into blessings. AMG the spokes for the extras, only way to cope with the pressure when you feel you're in too deep, let God take the wheel like a Tesla. Let God sort him out, you get a little beat switch where Nas comes in. I was kind of hoping he would rap on the original beat that Malice and Pusha were going back and forth on. And again, this is the second instance of them just spitting a whole verse back and forth, bar after bar. The chemistry is absolutely insane. And this song, a lot of these songs just sound like pure raw hip-hop at its purest form. Overall, this album spanning only about 40 minutes, 13 songs, everything just sounds extremely clean, concise, but also unpolished in the production, in the messaging. There's a duality between getting lost within your demons, battling the devil, but also using that as a way to spread the message of always maintaining your values, your morals, keeping your faith in God, keeping on that straight path, and acknowledging your shortcomings to, like Malice had said on the intro, to turn your mess into your message. And you could tell like Pharrell really had a strong hand in orchestrating this entire thing. I hate to bring like other artists into this, especially when it's not the most positive thing to say, but when you look at another legend like Lil Wayne releasing his album The Carter 6, a lot of the songs on there, you're hearing him slurred out, repeating the same hook or refrain, drowned in auto-tune, nasally vocals, tone deaf. The songs don't flow smoothly together one after the other. Here, everything, again, like I said, sounds clean, sounds concise in its sequencing while still maintaining that gritty formula that made the chemistry between Pharrell and the Clipse so powerful to begin with. You could tell there was very high intention behind the structure of everything surrounding this project, even from the rollout to the actual music and the sequencing that we get here. Pusha T and Malice have noted in the past that they originally came up and decided to form a group together because Pusha T was really good at being able to kind of gather his raw thoughts and just kind of spit them in a really fast pace. Meanwhile, Malice was a lot more careful with it and crafted his verses handwritten in a much more drawn out process. But because Malice took so much longer to write his rhymes down versus Pusha T's quick approach, they made the perfect duo because they cut the work in half, no pun intended. And the duality of both their personas, their characters within the music and as brothers just flows perfectly together. Their chemistry is still amazing 20 plus years into making music. I almost look at it like when you have a devil and an angel on your shoulder, right? Pusha T is kind of like the devil who's giving into those intrusive thoughts, who's saying how he feels at all times, whether you love him or hate him for it. He's going to speak his truth no matter how ugly it is. Meanwhile, Malice is on the other end like, yes, this might be your truth, but you also have to remember the intention behind it, the consequences that could come from the message you spread, and making sure that you turn your negatives into at least a positive message. And that's absolutely what they did on this project, giving the fans what they've wanted for 15 years and picking up like they never left, capturing that authentic Clipse sound to a T, no pun intended. And is this a perfect album? It's definitely too early to say. I can't say it's a classic. I can't say it's perfect, but it definitely exceeded my expectations. And I'm just happy to see that the quality of the messaging, the quality of the production, the quality of the bars themselves are at an all-time high. The structure is very strong, and they all picked up on their strong suits like they never left. The album's called Let God Sort 'Em Out, and just judging off the chemistry here, it sounds like after decades of battling the industry, battling their inner demons, Pusha T and Malice definitely have everything sorted out. But what do you guys think? Do you like the album? Did it exceed your expectations? Were you expecting more? Were you pleased with the features, the production? To me, I'm most happy with the return that Malice made, with the messaging that he's bringing here, the verses that he's bringing here. I think there's some of the highlights on the project. But absolutely, let me know what you guys think, and I will catch you in the next one.